An absolutely wild story happened in November 2014 in the state of Pennsylvania, USA. A woman asked to leave work and went on business, but she did not return. The police were able to unravel the web of lies associated with her disappearance, and the answers shocked everyone. November 21st, 2014 was an ordinary day. In the morning, 33-year-old Jessica Padget woke up, got her 3 children ready, drove her older kids to school, and went to work with her youngest, a 2-year-old child. Jessica worked as a teacher at a kindergarten. Around midday, Jessica asked to leave work for a while to run errands. The woman went to her mother's house, which was a 10-minute drive from the kindergarten, to send some documents by fax, but after that, Jessica did not return to work, and no one saw her alive after that. At work, everyone became worried that Jessica had been gone for so long and began calling her to find out where she was, but she did not answer the phone. Then her colleagues contacted the relatives of the missing woman. They called her husband, Michael, and they said that Jessica had gone to her mother's house for a brief visit, but 2 hours had passed and she was still not back. She wasn't answering her calls, and her child was waiting for her mother. The husband was stunned by such news and couldn't understand how this was possible since he was at work. He tried calling her, but all to no avail. The man then decided to call his mother-in-law, Jessica's mother, because Jessica had been heading to her house to send documents. Donnelly picked up the phone and said that Jessica wasn't at home. She was in Florida. Jessica was planning to buy a house there and was looking at options on the spot. The mother asked Michael to call her husband Greg, since he should have been at home and might know something. Michael called Greg, and he confidently stated that he had not seen Jessica that day. It was strange where she could have gone and what had happened to her. Michael called his mother-in-law back again, saying that no one had seen Jessica and that they didn't know where she was. Her husband was in despair and didn't know what to do. Her mother was also panicking, but being so far away, there was little she could do. She and Michael continued trying to call Jessica again and again, but it was useless. Michael immediately took a ticket for the next plane to help in the search, and meanwhile, Michael contacted the police. 4 hours after his wife's disappearance, the police reluctantly took up the case. They were sure that this was not a serious matter. Perhaps Jessica's phone had died, or she was spending time with a friend and would return later. They called all the relatives and friends of the missing woman, but no one had seen her. Detectives traced the route she had taken that day, and again found no clues. They called local hospitals in the hope that she had been admitted, but she wasn't there. Then investigators began to study the identity of the missing person to understand her social circle and determine what could have happened. Jessica Padget was born in 1980 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. She was the only child in the family, and her parents doted on their daughter. Jessica adored children and wanted to work with them, so she chose the profession of a teacher. Jessica had been married to Michael for only 2 months before her disappearance, but they had already been together for more than 8 years. The couple had 3 children, and in September 2014, they had decided to tie the knot. Jessica was happy. She loved her husband and children and could not just run away and leave her family and work. No one believed that she had simply left. Jessica was a responsible, family-loving woman, and her relatives began to worry that something bad had happened to her. The police tried to track her phone. Investigators found that it was pinging not far from her work, about 1.5 kilometers away, and detectives headed in that direction. There, they found the car, a white Subaru, parked in a store parking lot. The car was empty, as if it had been abandoned. The police examined the entire surrounding area, entered the store, and questioned the seller, but he hadn't seen her. There were CCTV cameras installed in the store, and one of them was aimed directly at the car. They took recordings from the cameras to study. The car was unlocked, and investigators examined the inside of the vehicle looking for clues. It turned out that all of her belongings, her phone, keys, and handbag with her wallet were left inside the car. How could she have left her car without taking any of her things? This seems suspicious. The policeman examined the footage from the cameras and found that when Jessica's car pulled into the parking lot at 1:15 p.m., someone stopped and then got out of the car and walked away. The quality of the recording left much to be desired. It was grainy, making it impossible to clearly identify whether it was Jessica or someone else. However, it appeared that a man got out of the car. The figure in the recording was tall, taller than Jessica, and the gate appeared to belong to a man. Detectives began to suspect that something had happened to Jessica and that this man had kidnapped her. Investigators placed Jessica on the wanted list and organized a search operation. Police officers searched the area where she had disappeared, and thousands of volunteers who knew and loved Jessica joined the search. Jessica's husband created a group on social media hoping to attract the attention of the public. The group quickly gained 5,000 subscribers. People reposted the information, and the family distributed and posted flyers with Jessica's photo. Days passed, but the investigation did not progress. The missing woman was never found. Her husband and family continued waiting for her to return home. Meanwhile, the detectives focused their efforts on searching for her mother's house, where she had been heading. They considered the possibility that something could have happened to her on the road or near the house. The police once again interviewed Greg, Jessica's stepfather. He said that he wouldn't have known that Jessica was coming to their house. Greg was away on business all day and did not see her. However, he speculated that perhaps she had come while he wasn't there because she had a key to the house. Detectives informed Greg that Jessica had told her colleagues at work that she was going to send a fax from her mother's house. Greg found this strange, since their fax machine had been broken for some time, and Jessica knew about it. This led them to believe that she had not been planning to visit them after all. Greg also began to express suspicion towards Michael, saying that perhaps Jessica had left him because, in his opinion, he was a loser, and Greg had never liked him. The police paid attention to this new information. As it turned out, Michael was already a suspect, since it's typical to suspect the husband or boyfriend first in these kinds of cases. However, Michael had an alibi. He was at work at the time of Jessica's disappearance, so they cleared him and moved on. However, Greg's comments made detectives reconsider Michael as a suspect. They went to Michael's house to talk to him again. Michael was at home with the children and agreed to speak with investigators. They asked him about the last morning he saw his wife. The man explained that he woke up before everyone else, had breakfast, and left for work before Jessica woke up. Everything had been normal. He was given a ride by a colleague, and his wife took the car with her to drop the kids off at school. Therefore, Michael could not have crossed paths with her during the day since he didn't have access to a car. Investigators noticed that Jessica's husband was tall, and his build seemed to match the figure seen in the CCTV footage from the store. They went to Michael's workplace to verify his alibi, and his claims were confirmed. Michael had indeed arrived at work early and did not leave the premises. Detectives then looked at CCTV footage from along the route Jessica had taken that day, from her work to her mother's house. They reviewed the recordings and found that Jessica had safely left the kindergarten parking lot and headed toward her mother's house. A few minutes later she was seen driving back, but the driving style of the car was very different from Jessica's usual style. The car rushed through the intersection quickly and chaotically, cutting across it in a hasty manner, but where did it go? It kept driving on, and its destination was unknown. This once again confirmed the investigators' suspicion that it was not Jessica driving, or that perhaps it was Jessica, but she was either in a hurry to get somewhere or was trying to hide from someone. The detectives returned to reviewing the CCTV footage from the store and began carefully examining the man who had gotten out of the car belonging to the missing woman. They watched the recording multiple times but didn't find anything conclusive. Then they examined footage from other nearby cameras that had captured events around the store, and this proved to be helpful. They discovered that the man who exited Jessica's car had walked nearby and gotten into a pickup truck. As they analyzed the footage of the pickup truck, they realized they had seen it before. It was the vehicle of Jessica's stepfather, Gregory Count. The detectives started looking into Gregory more closely and discovered that he had called Jessica multiple times on the day of her disappearance. Yet he had never mentioned this to the investigators. The police decided to approach him for another round of questioning. When asked why he had called Jessica so often, Gregory seemed surprised by the question. He explained that he had been asking her how to install a program on his computer, and she had helped him over the phone. According to him, after the phone call, he managed to solve the issue with her guidance, and then went about his day. Gregory denied seeing Jessica in person, but when the detectives confronted him with footage showing him getting into Jessica's car, his story began to unravel. Gregory then claimed that on that day, he had left his car for inspection, and a friend had brought him back to pick it up. He said that after getting into his car, he stopped at a gas station to buy water and food before heading to work. This was his explanation for why he ended up at the scene where Jessica's car was parked. He also said that he had driven off in her car in a panic when he saw it in the driveway, fearing that he would be accused of abducting her. At this point, the police didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest, so they left, but they continued to gather more information. Gregory owned his own business, and employees confirmed that they had seen him at work that day, handing out paychecks. However, no one could verify that he had been at the office all day. Gregory admitted that he had picked up the car, but he could not explain where he had been when he drove away in Jessica's car. The detectives continued to visit locations that Gregory had been to that day. They went to the auto repair shop where his car had been inspected. Employees there reported that Gregory had not returned his car for a long time and had not been seen on the day in question. They also checked the gas station's CCTV footage where they saw Gregory's car drive by without stopping, despite his earlier claim that he had entered. Further investigation led to interviews with Jessica's colleagues at work. They revealed that Jessica had received numerous calls that morning, with someone persistently asking her questions. Initially, Jessica had not revealed who was calling, but by lunchtime, she had confided in her co-workers that it was her stepfather, Gregory, who had been asking her about installing a computer program. She told her colleagues that she needed to go to his house to help him with the program and to send some documents. This information contradicted Gregory's earlier statements and prompted the detectives to revisit Jessica's mother for permission to search her house. They first checked the fax machine and discovered that it was working, despite Gregory's claim that it was broken. In fact, Jessica had used it to send documents at 1 p.m. on the day of her disappearance, confirming that she had been at the house. With a search warrant in hand, the detectives combed through the house for more evidence. They suspected that Gregory had attacked Jessica inside. In the basement, they found bloody men's sandals, a belt, and napkins in the trash. While it wasn't immediately clear whether these items were directly linked to the crime, it was suspicious. The blood on the sandals was sent for testing, and it was confirmed to be Jessica's. The investigators now had solid evidence and returned to question Gregory again, this time armed with the inconsistencies in his story and the new evidence. Gregory, under pressure, requested a break to think things over. Afterward, he was taken to the police station, where he confessed. He admitted that Jessica had come to his house around 1 p.m. on the day of her disappearance. She sat down at the computer, helped him install the program, and sent the documents. Then, when she turned her back to him and was about to leave, he took out a gun and shot her in the back of the head. Afterward, Gregory dragged her body into the bedroom, drove her car to the store, and adjusted the seat to make it look like Jessica had been driving. He then got into his pickup truck, which he had parked nearby earlier, and drove to his office. At the office, he went about his business as usual, handing out salaries to employees. Meanwhile, Jessica's body lay in the bedroom. That evening, Gregory returned home, installed 2 cameras, and filmed himself repeatedly violating Jessica's body. This was the true motive for the murder. Everything had been carefully planned. Gregory had killed Jessica, who he had known for many years to abuse her. Afterward, he buried her body behind a barn and spent hours cleaning the house to remove any traces of blood. Despite his extensive cleaning, forensic experts found bloodstains on the mattress, carpet, and other places in the house. They also found disturbing video recordings of Gregory desecrating Jessica's body. Shockingly, it was revealed that in the months leading up to the murder, Gregory had been visiting a sex shop and purchasing items that he later used on Jessica. Gregory was arrested and held without bail. On November 26th, Jessica's body was found in the location he had indicated. It was wrapped in a blanket and tied with rope, with a gunshot wound to the head, which was the cause of death. Jessica's biological daughter, from Gregory's first marriage, recalled how her father had seemed overly worried when they were searching for Jessica, but at the time, she hadn't thought much of it. She was devastated when she learned the truth, that her father was the murderer. Gregory's wife, Jessica's mother, immediately filed for divorce after his arrest. To her shock, it was revealed that Gregory had transferred most of their property into his own name and moved money into his account just before the arrest. He had also hired a top lawyer who argued that Gregory had been insane at the time of the crime. The defense claimed that Gregory had suddenly lost control due to his obsessive thoughts. Relatives described Gregory as a kind and reasonable man with no criminal past. They were shocked to learn he was capable of such a heinous act. Although the death penalty was available in Pennsylvania, the prosecutor could not pursue it because the sexual abuse occurred after the murder, and under state law, that wasn't grounds for the death penalty. At trial, Gregory, now 53 years old, claimed that crazy thoughts had suddenly overwhelmed him and that he couldn't resist them. He admitted that he was obsessed with Jessica, but had always managed to control himself until that fateful moment. He expressed regret not for killing Jessica, but for losing everything: his wife, house, business, and daughter. He did not express any remorse for Jessica. The prosecution argued that the crime had been carefully planned. They presented evidence that Gregory had driven Jessica's car and adjusted the seat to create the illusion that she had been driving. This was the most damning evidence of his premeditation, and the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. Gregory was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He appealed the verdict, claiming that he had been under the influence of marijuana, mushrooms, and alcohol at the time of the murder, which caused him to lose his judgment. His appeal was rejected. Thank you for watching.